storytellers that do live events, we hope, again, and Zoom concerts on the second Sunday of every month at 2:30, and then have a short business meeting afterward. And today we're going to have some great storytelling. Susan and Steve Fulbright have been telling stories for a long time. Susan's going to come first, but they do all kinds of great stuff. Susan kind of specializes in scary stories, and by that I don't mean that to spooky. No, I mean I don't go. She terrifies me. And then she and Steve do a thing called tandem storytelling, which is just wonderful to watch. And so I'm going to invite them to come.
The stories we tell are to honor Jan. The story is the tale of the tale. There was, and there was not. On the edge of the Arctic Circle, there was a village. Now the people there were very poor. They were peasants. Now, not well educated, didn't have much, but they were rich in stories. Every single night, the villagers would gather and they'd make a large bonfire. And the elders and then others as well would come and tell tales. Now there was one little boy who was particularly fascinated by the stories. He was so anxious each day to hear them that he would be the first one there to help dry wood to make the bonfire. He would settle in close so he could see everything clearly and hear all the words that were said. He would sit there in rapt attention all through the evening until even the coals in the fire turned red like cat's eyes. Well, one day while he was listening to the stories, the elder looked out at him and he said, "Boy, come on. It's your turn to tell." Me? Tell a story? I can't do that. But boy, we all eventually tell stories. It's now your time. Come. He got up slowly and made his way to where everyone could see him. He hung his head. I don't know how to begin. Well, boy, in many parts of the world, they say, once upon a time. In other places, they say, there once was. In a far-off place called Jamaica, they say crick and crack to begin their tales. Here, we say there was, and there was not. Maybe 2 out of 3 people really listen, and maybe 2 out of 3 really understand. Oh, all right. There was. I can't tell a story. I can't read. Boy, we're peasants. None of us can read. But unlike people who have books that they store on shelves, we keep our stories in our hearts. And we keep them warm and alive. Tell one. There was. What if I mess up? What if I leave something important out? Or what if I put something in that wasn't in there before? The elder just shook his head and chuckled. He says, "Boy, think of the story as a letter that you receive from the past. You erase a few lines, and you add a few lines, and you send it into the future." That's what we do. There was. he saw all those people looking at him. It was like his mouth was filled with words. He couldn't speak. The elder came up and put his arm around him. Boy, you must tell. Think of yourself as like the farmer who goes out and reaps the wheat that he has not sown. Or the one who goes out and gathers fruit that he hasn't pruned the trees. You must tell to give back. And with that, the boy stood tall. He looked at his audience and he said, there was, and there was not. Now what the boy told is not important, but the fact that he told was everything. The tale of the tale. To me, this story is Jan. She had the courage to tell. It's a big step. She kept her stories in her heart and she shared them with people. She wasn't afraid to add a few lines and take away a few lines. And for that, we thank Jan immensely. Now my partner in crime here. All right. Our guest of honor is here. Come right in. And that you and Cuz have told truth and story. Oh, yeah.
Story was setting on her veranda, and she was a beautiful woman. Ageless beauty. You couldn't tell she was young or she was more mature. Her hair was beautiful. It kind of glistened and changed colors as the angle of the sun moved. She had on a hat, nice thin hat to shade her eyes from the sun. She had jewels on her fingers, one birthstone for every month, if you included the two in her ears. And she had on a dress that looked like it was made from silver, and a golden sash that looked like it was gold thread in a satin finish. And her shoes, they looked like they were carved from big chunks of a ruby. And then she saw in the distance her brother, Truth, coming down the road.
She was shocked. She hadn't seen him in a long time. She threw the big feather that she was fanning herself with over her shoulder, and she started running toward him. She was so excited. But as she got closer and she could actually see him without the sun's glare, her handsome, muscular brother had this downcast look on his face. And he was naked. Not naked, naked. He didn't even have on a pair of shoes. She ran to him. Brother, what is the matter?
Oh, I feel so disappointed. I have all this news to tell the people. It's important news. It's news they need to hear. But nobody listens. The women just kind of giggle when I come by. The boys, they throw rocks at me. And the men just go, who's going to listen to him? And I have to leave the town, go to the next town. Same thing. Nobody's listening.
And you don't understand why?
No, because it's important news.
I had a thought. upstairs to her wardrobe. She had an expansive wardrobe. She had hats, she had closets for shirts and blouses, and she had pants and skirts, and she had whole rows of different kinds of boots and shoes. On the other side was a big jewelry case filled to the brim with jewels. So she went to the first closet and she pulled out a pair of pants. The pants of plot, and she handed it to her brother. Now, put these up. I think this is going to start helping you. Oh, yeah. Oh, nice fit.
That feels pretty good.
Good. Now she went to her other closet, and there she brought out a huge, magnificent shirt made of silk, and it had elaborate patterns painted upon it. This shirt of satin should be nicely very nice. But you need something to cinch it up. She went over to another area, and there was a whole rack of belts. Pick one, brother.
I like this one.
The belt of thing, very nice. I like the gold buckle. Good. Now, your feet. She went over to where all the shoes and boots were, and she said, now pick what you would like.
These look nice for a traveling person.
Oh, yes. Nice tall boots made of leather. Very nice.
How am I looking now?
You're looking fine, mighty fine. Let's see. Well, we are going out in the sun. You need a hat. Which one do you like over there?
This one, nice wide brim.
Oh, and the feather. Nice touch. Looking good, except you need a little bit more. Let's go over to my jewelry case. She pulled out a great big medallion. Personification. Oh, that looks nice against your chest.
Oh, yeah.
Now your hands look a little pale. Try these. A little onomatopoeia, a little alliteration would look nice there. And let's try rhyme on that. That'll do nicely. For now.
Oh, yeah. I hope I look as good as I feel.
Well, you do, dear brother. I think it's time to go out into the world. Are you ready?
Well, let's go try it again.
And they did. They went down the road, and everywhere they went, they were welcome. Well, Truth was in shock. What he didn't realize was that most people have trouble with the naked truth. But
Truth, dressed in story, is always a welcome guest.
Thank you for being one of our truth tellers and storytelling. You find the truth in the stories, and you tell us tales that maybe we don't want to hear, but we need to hear. And for that, we thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve and Susan. So our next storyteller is Lou Bolton, and he is a master of telling especially Jack tales. Now, I don't think he's going to do Jack tales today, but he's written several books of them, and it's very, very interesting, and it's wonderful to go to watch him work. And so we're going to invite him to come and talk for us now.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
It is a pleasure to be here today, especially since I started to say old familiar faces, but I guess that's true. So let's tell the truth. These old familiar faces. And the last time that I was in this building was the last time I saw many of these people. It was a memorial for our good friend, storyteller, Brooks-Headrick, who passed away. That 2018. And so this is the first time I've come back, but this is a different kind of occasion in which we are celebrating Jan. Jan, who's been with us many years now, and is on her way back up north to her birthplace. So we're here today, and I'm going to tell two stories. One is a Wiley Oakley tale, and the other, Jim asked me to give a kind of rundown of the program that Jan did for the Smoky Mountain Historical Society. So I'll be doing both of them. Now, both of these are journey tales. The Wiley story, his journey, is up the mountain to Mount LeConte. Jan's journey is from up north down to the Tennessee area, getting used to this place and living her life here and making family and friends here. I'll start with the Wiley story. I got my Wiley hat on after all. And before I tell the story, I'll give you a little bit of background, and you storytellers will perhaps appreciate this more than the others. And the others, if you're not interested, just nod off and wait on the story comes. This story was told first, or not the first time it was told, but the first time that it was heard and written down was in 1920 on the top of Mount LeConte. Now, the person who heard it that night, among many others, was a woman named Laura Thornborough. Laura heard the tale that night, and then in 1937 she included it in her book, The Great Smoky Mountains. It's a good book. But before she had got to hear that story, she had come up the Rainbow Falls Trail to Mount LeConte. Do any of you know the Rainbow Falls Trail?
Yeah.
The beautiful falls up there? It's not an easy walk in the park even now. But back in 1920, it was very difficult. And Laura describes that they had to climb over these great boulders. They had to crawl under trees. They were going through brambles and briars. And it was a tough hike, and they were panting by the time they got up to LeConte. But when they got there, cliff tops, and they beheld the beauty, the majesty, the vastness of the Great Smoky Mountains, the trek was well worth it. Well, that evening, after that long journey, they got to rest. And they had a little fire. And so they were sitting around the fire. And there were two guys with them. One of them was named Wiley Oakley. How many of you have heard tell of Wiley Oakley? Yeah. A couple over here. Good. He was known as the Roman man of the mountains. And he was a very well-known guide in his day. The park designated him as the #1 guide. He's also the man who named Rainbow Falls, as well as some wildflowers and some place names, things like Hearts Are Busting with Love, my favorite, Doll's Eye, Hugham's Hell, just to name a few. So Wiley was there, and they coaxed Wiley to tell a tale. Now, you know how it is with storytellers. You can hardly get them to say a single word. And then it's even harder to shut them up. Well, Wiley agreed to tell the story that had happened to him, one that he had instigated. And he started out saying something like, well now, I was going up to Mount LeConte with some gals, and I carried some potatoes along with me. I like potatoes cooked in the fire. Well, we got up there and we refreshed ourselves at the spring there. And you know what's amazing to me? That spring is a mile higher than Gatlinburg down in the valley. You still got all that good water out. Well, after they'd done what they needed to do that day, it was going to be a cold night in the Smoky Mountains. And well, I thought, well, it's cold up here in these Smokies, and I don't want my potatoes to freeze tonight. So it was dark by that time, and then you got a lantern, and you got a little shovel and potatoes, and went over to a big old balsam tree. So he dug some holes in the ground there, in the roots of that tree, and he buried those potatoes, covered them up, and then went back and bedded down for the night. Well, the next morning, while it was still dark, that group of campers, they went out to Myrtle Point to see the sunrise. The beautiful golden sun rising, and just painting each ridge as it went along with that golden light. They went back, they had a fire started, and then Wiley realized he had to get rid of those taters. So he went to the balsam tree, and he started digging up the potatoes. Well, as he was digging them up, two of the gals from the group saw him, were nearby, and one of them looked at that big tree and said, Wiley, what kind of tree is that great big old tree there? And I said, well, that there is a balsam tree. And he went on to say, now, just as a joke, I never dreamt that they believed me. But I said, and these here are balsam potatoes. Well, one of those girls was real surprised, and she bought it. The other girl was more of a, you can't pull the wool over my eyes kind of gal. And she might have been thinking to herself, prove it. Well, while he got potatoes out, and that one gal who talked to him first, she was so excited about it. She said, I never allowed that balsam trees have potatoes at their roots. And I want to taste one. And well, sure that she could. So we went back, he cleaned up those potatoes, he put them in the ashes of the fire, and they cooked up till they got tender, and got them out, cooled them down a little bit, and then he gave one of the potatoes to that first gal. And she broke in half and gave half to her friend. Well, the first guy tasted it. This is good. Yeah, it's a little stronger than other potatoes. The other girl, I think her name was Jan, she said, but it tastes like any other potato to me. But the first guy said, oh no, it's a lot stronger. And Molly said, it just tickled me to hear her that gal say that the potatoes were stronger. He said, now I do allow that potatoes cooked in the fire like that, they may get a little grain, a smoke taste to them. But when she said that they were stronger than ordinary potatoes, I could just bust out laughing. It was so funny to me that she believed it. But like I said, he didn't bust out laughing. He just let it go on. Well, after they broke camp, they were headed down the Allen Cave Trail, beautiful trail, Wally's favorite. And as they were going down that trail, that first gal, she came up to Wally and she said, Wally, would you do something for me? I'd like to take some of the balsam potatoes back home. Would you find a balsam tree and dig me up some so that I can take them to Knoxville? Well, Wiley was calling a lie. Now, he could have told the truth, but maybe Wiley was like a lot of storytellers that I know, not me, of course, but a lot of storytellers who figure that truth, well, it's just not as important if you're going to tell a story. There's a phrase about that. Anybody remember that phrase? Something about, don't let truth stand in the way of a good story, or in this case, a good joke. So I just let it go on by. But then he explained, now, she balsams, they're the only kind of balsams that have taters at their roots. He said, I'll keep my eye out. Well, now, Wiley was right. He said that she balsam trees were one kind, but there's also another kind, he said. There's the he balsam. And he said that mountain folks call the spruce the he balsam, and they call the mountain balsam, the fir, they call that the she balsam. Which may sound like a load, but actually actually, it is true. The red spruce is nicknamed which one is it? The he balsam. And the Fraser fir is nicknamed the she balsam. Sometimes called the blister balsam, because that particular tree has a blister on its bark, and that bark oozes that little balsam, tar and milky substance, and you can use that tar to put on cuts and wounds and all. So there is a she balsam and a he balsam. Now I don't know why the mountain people call them he balsam and she balsam, unless it's the fact, and this is the fact, that the he balsam does not give milk, does not have that sap. And the she balsam does. And the she balsam is the only evergreen that has these upright conifers. The only one. But let me tell you, neither one of them have potatoes at their roots. So Wiley and the group headed on down that trail. Wiley continued to point out things along the way. Allen Cave, which is not really a cave, but an overhanging bluff, and had this valuable saltpeter in it, which is used to make gunpowder. So during the Civil War, both sides coveted the materials from that particular cave. Went on down, they saw the beautiful views. They saw the Duck Hawk Bridge that has a hole in it, big enough for some people to stand up in. And went on down further, and they got down to a place that is now called Arch Rock. And just to fill you in a little bit about that, it was Wiley's grandfather, Harvey Henderson Oakley, who first told Wiley about it. Is that there's this queer cave where you can stand if it's raining, and you can cast your line into the river, and you can catch fish and not get wet. And Wiley later explored that area and found it for himself. And then in the 30s, when the park personnel were laying out the various hikes to Mount LeConte, Wiley took them to this place that we call Arch Rock now. And he showed it to them, and they were so impressed that they changed the proposed trail of Allen Cave over so that it could go through Arch Rock. And Wiley also worked with the CCCs to clear out that trail up the 30s. So they saw that view and went on down, and all the time, Wiley had his eye out, looking for that she balsam tree to get them taters. But unfortunately, Wiley never could spot one of those she balsams to get those taters for that gal. And I'll tell you why. Because the spruce fir forest only grow way up at high elevations like at Mount LeConte. So they couldn't possibly have been one of those trees down there with the tater. Well, the gal was disappointed, but she went on, they all went their ways. Wiley was in Knoxville one time. After that, and on the street he met a man, and the man came up to him, the old man, and said, Wiley, why did you tell those gals that story about balls and potatoes that yarn? I mean, they come back to Knoxville, and they told everybody that Wiley Oakley told them the balls and trees had potatoes on their roots. And they had to eat some of them too. Why'd you do that, Wiley? And Wiley said, well, he started giggling again, remembering that time. He said, well, you know, I never dreamt that they'd believe me on that story. And usually, I'm going to tell a great big old yarn like that, I'll yodel a little bit to let people know that it's a big one and they can believe it or not. And that was a big one, all right. So this is a story with a yodeling in it, and Wiley did not yodel. So I think we ought to make up for that. And I think that we ought to yodel. Now, I'm not Wiley. I don't look like Wiley. I don't sound like Wiley. I don't dress like Wiley. And I certainly do not yodel like Wiley, but let's give it a try. I will shout out a phrase of the yodel, then I want you to echo it back. Okay? Okay. You are game. A little lady, oh. A little lady, oh. A little lady, oh. A little lady, oh. A little lady, lady, lady. Let's stick to storytelling, shall we? Now, my takeaway from this story is this. You may not be able to believe every word that comes out of Wiley's mouth, but you better believe that you will probably enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy Wiley and the balsam potatoes. Well, now the second bit. This is a tale about something that Jan and I did over at the courthouse for the Smoky Mountain Historical Society. It was a kind of a retrospective. And before I tell you about that, I will say that, you know, according to what some of you all have already said, I think Jan is one of those people like Wiley that you can't believe everything that she says, but you're probably going to enjoy it. Well, I will say that the Smoky Mountain Historical Society certainly enjoyed hearing this retrospective of the woman who's lived here all these years and has done so much in the realm of storytelling and writing and such as she's been here. And here's sort of what went on, bits and pieces of it. We found out that Jan moved from upstate New York, from New York State, and she moved down with her husband. And this was about 1980 is what she figured. And they did this and they did that, and they finally started a restaurant. And they ran that for a while until Jan ran him off. And but she continued to try to run the restaurant and make a go of it. And she hired one employee to cook with one credential. Can you bake good mountain biscuits? Well, there was a fellow who worked across the street, blonde hair, blue eyes. And he would come and have breakfast at this place that Jan was running. And one morning, that fellow had the nerve to say, I can bake better biscuits than this. And Jan heard it. And she said, prove it. Just like that gal up on the mountain. Prove it. Well, he must have been proved it because they got married near Valentine's Day one year. Last time I asked Jan, she couldn't remember the year. You remember it today?
No.
Okay, good to hear that good old senior moments continue. So they got married, and the rest of their lives they had biscuits and gravy. Well, each of them did what each of them does best. Cuz, of course, told his stories, and he played his music, and he sang his songs, and Jan told stories. She did her writing, she did her administrating, and cracking the whip as only Jan can do. And they went to Jonesboro together, and they became kind of a team, you know, like Mutt and Jeff, like Simon and Garfunkel, like Jan and Dean, like Albert and Costello, like Burns and Allen. They became Team Jan, Cousin Jan. The first time that I encountered them was around 86 or 87. I can't remember the exact date either. But we were having an event at the Episcopal Church in Gatlinburg with the other red door over there. And it was a community event. We invited people to come in. And we were doing things like reading scenes and scripts and poems or original writing or whatever. Well, who walks in but Jan and Cuz and their entourage? Jan had written a story And it was a story about men sitting around at the courthouse here in Sevierville, sitting outside and swapping tales and telling lies and talking about the weather and then talking about their knives or maybe whipping. I'm not sure exactly what went on now. It's been so long ago. Do you still have that, Jan? If you do, I would love to read that. Huh?
I can tell that story.
Okay, I'd like to hear it sometime before we get out of here. So they read the story that day, and we laughed and enjoyed it. Well, a year or so later, I was working with the Smoky Mountain Jacktails at a campground between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, closer to, not Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg and Cosby, closer to Cosby. And I remembered Jan with us, so I called and said, would you like to come help me to try to act out some of these old folk tales, these jack tales? And then they started driving all the way from the other side of Sevierville, way over 321, a long ways, and it was on Sundays, and we started the work, the serious work of the Smoky Mountain Jacktails. And we did them for many years. We even went to Dollywood in 1990 with a Christmas Jacktail. And after that time, we would reconnect now and then on special occasions like Labor Day, July 4th, or the 10th anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the Jacktails. And we usually did the one that we favored the most, which was called Big Jack and Little Jack. And we did that with cousin's nephew, Tony. After Cuz passed away, we also did a memorial show out there with Tony and Jan to remember Cuz. But earlier than that, I think probably one of the best things we did, at least one of the longest, we did about a 2 to 3 hour show at Walter State Community College over in Morristown. Told lots of tales. And Jan, one of the tales she told was about the 3 women making fools of those 3 husbands of theirs. And that story had been given to her, I believe, by Mary Peterson. Something like that. She can straighten me out. Well, Mary Peterson and some others, were doing storytelling in Cades Cove, probably around the Becky Cable Cabin, somewhere in that area.
Yeah.
Well, Jan and Cuz joined them, and this group of people decided to take us on. And so this evolved into a kind of obscure group called the Smoky Mountain Storytelling Association. You ever hear tell that one? Oh, I see one nod over there. Somebody's heard it. And Cuz and Jan were charter members of that group. And now, here we are, still gathering, still telling tales, still having celebrations and World Storytelling Days and telling stories all over the place. We're the continuing family of storytellers. And Jan today being one of the very last of the originals, in Bam terms, the originals of the Smoky Mountain Storytellers Association. One reason we're here today. The most creative storytelling act that I can remember seeing Jan pull off happened at Blackberry Farm, which is where the Lamar Alexander home place is in that same area. Some guests were coming in and they wanted a special presentation. And Jan delivered. She took the folktale, Knoxville Girl, and she made it into a little play, breaking it up into scenes. And at this Blackberry Farms, there was a trail, a road, that looped around the pond and on into the woods and back to the farm. So the guests got on this wagon And the wagon was pulled to various stops along the way. And when they got there, actors acted out and told part of the story from beginning to end. Went on around, on into the woods. Jan even had people in the woods planted to shout out things and to shoot off guns and to run on fog machines. Very clever. Now, you know the old saying about best laid plans? Well, the story actually came out very well. But the guest, no. It was like pearls before swine. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Pearls before you know what. And they were drinking and they were laughing and they just did not appreciate what was going on. Yes, Jan?
One of the things is we were out there under the stars in the Great Smoky Mountains, and they were just awesome. And they had never seen that many stars.
Oh, so that was a part of it.
That was a big part of it. They're just, it was, they didn't know.
Well, they weren't quite swine after all, were they? They were laughing in the Smoky Mountains.
It was.
Well, whatever happened then, I will say this, that it was an ingenious concept, and it was very well carried out. Very special and different kind of storytelling theater.
Mhm.
Good job.
Thank you.
I would say the thing that I enjoyed most about getting ready for this program for the Smoky Mountain Historical Society was going over to Jan's house one evening, and we were there 2, maybe 3 hours, and we were talking and reminiscing and remembering and eating roasted chicken, and I was asking questions because we were going to do it as a kind of interview, and I would ask questions of Jan, so I had to know what was going on. So I would ask the questions, she would answer, and some of her answers were surprising and a little shocking, and she would say, "We won't tell that at the program." But we did go. She told some vignettes about the life of the New York State and down in Tennessee. She told about her writing. And she concluded by saying what has been said many times, how important storytelling is to carry on these stories. And these personal family stories. She was saying you gotta hold on to them, you gotta preserve them before these memories fade away and they're lost forever. One of the things that Jan wrote, I hope I can remember the words, if not, I'll sort of paraphrase it. She wrote, stories are who we are. They are our history, where we came from. Stories are what we change and what we aspire to be. Close enough?
Close enough.
So, Jan, as you continue your storytelling journey, as you continue to aspire and to inspire, I certainly wish you well along the way. And I can also say that I have loved knowing you and sharing the journey that we have been on all of these years. Happy tales to you until we meet again.
So friends, as you know by now, we are losing our mentor and our friend to New York. So their gain is our loss. Many years ago, when I went off into the ministry, I was in the early 80s, I went to Arkansas and then North Carolina. And in North Carolina, I was introduced to storytelling. I was the associate minister for Donald Davis, as many of you know. And so it was like being in a cram course in storytelling. And so I began telling in North Carolina, and I would run across people who said, oh yeah, that's big in East Tennessee. So the next time I came back here to visit family, I think it may have even been in the phone book. Do I have to explain that to anybody, or do you guys know what it is? I found the Storytelling Association, and they were meeting in Knoxville, I think at the candy factory. And I went, didn't know anybody, just walked in and sat down. And who was leading this meeting but Janice Brooks-Headrick? And so I was introduced to the group many, many years ago before retiring back here and becoming a part of it myself. And but that was my first introduction to her and getting to hear her. And today, as this session of our storytelling comes to an end, we have a presentation that we want to make to Jan. And I'm going to ask Jennifer if she would to escort Jan up here. I don't get to visit him yet. Come on up here.
That's free.
So would you like to sit?
Yeah, don't move that chair.
I won't move that chair.
Thank you.
All right. So we have 3 presentations that we would like to make to you. One is, to my knowledge, this has never happened in this group. We have elected as a group to award you the title of Storyteller Emeritus. It says, Smoky Mountain Storytellers Association, Storyteller Emeritus, Janice Brooks-Headrick, Charter Member 1994 to present March of 2023. So that is for you with our gratitude and our great love for
you. I'm going to paste this in my car window so everybody can see it on the way up.
Good. And the second presentation we have, Jennifer is going to tell you about and present to you.
Jan, you were actually the first person that I met when I came to Knoxville and wanted to become a storyteller. And I remember talking to you on the phone, and it was difficult for me moving here and meeting somebody who was so welcoming and so gracious. Made a huge difference to me personally, especially somebody who also hails from the New England area. So thank you so much for welcoming me as a storyteller. The Smoky Mountain Storytelling Association has a very interesting logo that is not always that easy to translate into anything in the form of jewelry. However, we have managed to find a way of turning the logo into a necklace that we wanted you to have as a sterling silver, and it has your name engraved on the back of it. And I just wanted to present this to you, and if it's all right, I will put it on for you.
I designed that. I designed that logo.
Yes, you did. Sorry, it's still in its little things. But you are the one and only to have this necklace.
And the storytellers have done so much for me. Storytellers have done so much for me in so many ways. And I have learned so much through storytelling. And I'm still telling my story. I was born in New York State, and I come down here and I learned to talk all over. Thanks to Mary Pearson, who told me, girl, when you were growing up, your mouth wasn't made right. You don't never learn how to talk like this. So I'm very glad to be here. And this is overwhelming. It's overwhelming.
Well, I'll show it to you. It's got the mountains, and it's got the little towers.
Oh, it is so outrageously wonderful. Yeah, it's good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
third is a much more practical present. Kathleen Albornan has something she wants to share with you.
This is to keep you warm when you go back to the frozen room. We both know how cold it can get. So soft.
All right, so Jen, we're going to give you the last word. What would you like to say?
God blessed me from so many ways and so many people. And I'm gonna really, really miss this part of the country. I sure am. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
You can come back and visit whenever you want.
Okay! I will be making calls, especially when the snow starts to fall in September.
You mean next week?
Until, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
All right, so there's everything.
Like Joe Dr.